Hello, welcome to the Go Grab That Day podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. We're all keeping sane and happy and whatever else you're doing in life. I don't know, but I hope you're all doing good. Today as usual we got some fights to talk about before I get into it. Apologies again, this podcast is a bit late this week. It's just been a bit of a nightmare. They're testing fire alarms in our complex here, and it's been completely sporadic at the times they're doing it, and it's just, even just before I started this podcast they were doing it, so I'm hoping they're not going to do it for the next hour-ish. But yeah, apologies, it's a bit late again. We will eventually hit a good rhythm to where they're coming out at the right times every week, but at least you're getting some content. You get to hear my irritating voice a little bit, at least once a week, twice a week, 10 times a week. But I hope everyone's doing well. Please keep supporting the podcast. Some of our videos, the numbers have been brilliant, in particular on the Carlton Leach interview. It's gone beyond what I ever thought it would. It's really cool to see. We're at almost 10,000 views, I believe, which I did not expect, and I mean it's still climbing. Subscribers are slowly climbing, still very low, but I mean they're climbing. That's all that matters. So I'm super happy. I know I'm always on here begging people to subscribe and stuff like that, which I'm still going to do, so please subscribe. But I'm really happy with the numbers, and as I do say every week, I'm enjoying the hell out of this. In time I will have more time to put more into it. It's just at the moment trying to juggle a lot of things at the same time is not easy, but we have a lot of as I keep saying as well, we have a lot of exciting projects that I'm working on, exciting things coming up, and there will be a lot more fun content coming up on the page. Just please keep supporting it, and I hope you're enjoying the videos that we are getting out there at the moment. It's a lot of fun. I can't stress that enough, so please keep supporting us, and mostly sharing it and getting it out there so we get those subscribers. And in time there will be a lot more fun interviews coming, but just at the moment we're at a bit of a lull, unfortunately. But listen, some great content coming, I promise you that, so keep supporting us. And of course, very quickly, I'll mention our affiliates, which is Mystique Jerseys and PPT Fitness and Nutrition. Mystique Jerseys, obviously a great gift idea, for any football, rugby, or GAA fans, for those of you in Ireland or outside of Ireland. Some great jerseys on there, and obviously it's a cool little mystery box that you can order for a birthday gift, for whatever kind of gift, a good gift. Use the promo code GOGRABTHATDAY, all caps, to get your percentage off. And also with PPT Fitness and Nutrition, our link is in the Instagram bio. Go check it out. It's a link to one of his programs, but he has many others, and he will be running for those of you on Irish time, he will be running a summer challenge, or a summer, something like that. He does these challenges every few months, and there's a summer one coming up, and he gets some great results for people, so go check that out. One of the links is to one of his programs, but he has many others, as I've said. And I've just seen recently he's taken on 2 new personal trainers, so he's going to have a lot more content and stuff going out, so do check out PPT Fitness and Nutrition. Peter is brilliant, I can't stress that enough, and he will get you the results you're looking for. Go check him out. The link for, as I said, the link for his is in our Instagram bio, and as is the Mystic Jerseys link as well. Go check them out. And we've got some fights to talk about, and some, as usual, MMA news and stuff like that. Another thing, which I know I'm always saying, but I can't stress this enough either, I'm always working on new projects, writing stuff down for things that I can work on in the future. Little ideas here and there, some that will come to fruition, some that won't. But anybody out there that's looking to get involved in something like this, hit me up. I'm all for new ideas, or anyone that wants to jump on board, depending on your idea, of course. If it's shit, not going to work. But hit me up. Anyone that wants to get involved, wants to come on the podcast, anything like that, I'm all for it. That's the fun thing about this, is it's mine. I get to do what I want. Anyone with any ideas or anything like that, hit me up. There's something I wanted to mention as well. It's a little bit of sad news, but I don't know if people back home have heard much about this, but it's big news out here. In the MMA world, and in particular in city kickboxing and stuff like that. That a fighter, young Fau Vake, died a few days ago as a result of an assault in the city here, which is a horrible story. Been around city kickboxing for a little while, obviously not lately, but I don't know Fau personally, but I know I met his brother John, and I trained with him a little bit, and he was actually the first trainer who introduced me to city kickboxing when I did my Wimp to Warrior introduction class. Real nice guy, and the family has such a really good reputation around here, and the brother that died, Fau, has a great reputation. People say nothing but great things about him. It's a horrible story, you know. He's I believe 25 years of age, has a daughter. You know, coming from a big family myself, I can't imagine what it's like to lose a sibling. It's a horrible story, especially a guy who had, you know, his coach, one of his coaches, Mike Angove, said it best. You know, you can look at his silverware and, you know, his trophies, his belts and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, he's a young father, a brother, and, you know, a son to people, and that's what he's more importantly known for. And it is a horrible story. Again, I didn't know him personally, but the story, because I've been around some of those guys, and even if you haven't been around them, it's not a nice story, you know. Yeah, it's just a young guy with such a big future ahead of him, and because of a horrible assault, you know, loses his life. It's not right. Yeah, it is a horrible story. I know from, you know, having a brother back home who's involved in the Muay Thai world, and people were always challenging him, you know, wanting to fight him, and he's gotten so many different close calls with street fights and things like that, and he was quite lucky. A measure of him being smart, him being tough, and a measure of luck as well, that he's okay, you know. But the story could be very similar, you know, and I can't imagine losing a sibling and things like that. But I think people need to take these things into consideration when getting involved in fights. You know, especially nowadays, there's every opportunity out there if you want to get involved in bare knuckle events, kickboxing, Thai boxing, MMA, whatever it may be. You know, these street fights are too dangerous, and, you know, I don't know the full story, obviously, because I wasn't there, so you're never going to hear the full story, but I gather that some group of dickheads with an ego knew that this guy was a fighter, and, you know, wanted to rub their egos a little bit. But at the end of the day, a young guy has died because of their fucking egos, and the laws here, a bit like back home, are not good enough. These people need to be punished. It's a young guy who's lost his life, who I'm willing to bet on it, being around fighters and stuff like that, that there wasn't much instigating on his end. It's very rare to see, especially in pro fighters. And there is, I know there's 4 guys who are I don't know, are they in custody, but they're going to be in trouble at the moment, so hopefully the law punishes them rightly, but it doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference, of course. It deters things like this in the future, but it's not going to ease the pain of, you know, Eugene Beerman, the city kickboxing guys, and of course the Vake family, which is, it's horrible. It's not a nice story no matter what way you look at it. And yeah, it is. It's quite heartbreaking. But just I wanted to mention that because my thoughts go out to the Vake family, to Eugene Beerman, to his brothers, to all the city kickboxing crew. Yeah, it's not nice, but people need to start taking these things into consideration. I mean, that's a pro fighter. That's a guy who could take a punch. That's a guy who could fight. He was a pro, you know what I mean? And he has died as a result of some scumbag hitting him. You know, people need to take these things into consideration when getting involved in fights. I know from back home, with some people it's a done thing. You have a few beers, you have a scrap, and it's not that simple sometimes. And it does take the punch in the right place or the wrong place, and somebody's not going home to their family, you know. On both ends, you know, somebody goes to jail, somebody goes to the fucking morgue, and rightly so, somebody goes to jail, you know. But it's just, people need to look. Like I said, there's so many avenues now. If you're someone who wants to, if you like to get involved in scraps, you want to test yourself, go test yourself, but test yourself right. Get in a cage, get in a ring, get involved in training, put your energy into something right. But getting involved in these street fights, you see, listen, there's so many ways to see videos online of, you know, you see 2 guys fighting, and as soon as one hits the ground, all of a sudden there's 10 guys jumping in. Cowards. That's basically what it is. That's why street fights are so dangerous. You know, you often hear people about looking for self-defense, you know, when it comes to street fighting. There isn't really a lot. It's hard to cover every angle. The best self-defense is to get the fuck out of there. Anyway, I'm not going to go on too much, but it's a horrible story. Like I said, a young guy, fit guy, a guy with a promising future, and has left far too early, and a heartbroken family and a heartbroken gym family behind him. It's just, yeah, it's not a nice story in any way. And yeah, I wanted to just, give a shout out to, as I said, Eugene Bierman, the Vake family, and City Kickboxing. My thoughts are with you. But yeah, tough story. For anybody who, would like to maybe help out, if you check, I know online they have I'm sorry, I couldn't find the name. It's not a GoFundMe, but it's another company very similar to that. I could not find the name of it. I donated myself, but I can't remember the name. I'm sorry, but they have if you check out any of the pages, the City Kickboxing page or anything like that, they are raising money through a funding service, and also City Kickboxing themselves are selling Vake family T-shirts, which they're pretty cool T-shirts, and all money raised will go to the Vake family. So please, if anyone can, get involved. I'm sure it'll help. Won't ease the pain too much, but I'm sure it'll help in some way. Help them get through a tough time. So if you can donate, please do, and show your support. You get all the details on the City Kickboxing page. And yeah, but again, horrible story, and like I said, my thoughts go out to everyone who was close to Fau Vake, and may he rest in peace. Anyway, we'll try and move on. But moving on to the fights, we've not a whole lot of news this week in terms of MMA things, but a couple of little bits. The fight card, obviously, at the weekend. One thing I have done is, which I swore I would, I think I may have said it on the podcast recently as well, that I want to start. Anyone who's really into MMA will know what I'm saying. Will understand what I'm saying. Anyone who's into sports in general. So like me, I'm a big football fan. I love MMA. People won't know that football is actually my favourite sport, even though I don't talk about it much on this. But anyone that knows me will know that eventually in time I tend to do a football podcast as well. And I want to expand the MMA side of it, and expand it in terms of not just following the UFC, but it's just so hard to track everything, I have tried watching some of the Bellator events recently and a little bit of One Championship. It's just that the time difference here as well makes me dizzy. But eventually I will start to track a little bit of One Champ, because I watched Bellator, some of Bellator this week. It was very good, and I watched One Championship last week. I think it was last week. And yeah, some great fights on there, some big stars to keep an eye on. I'm going to try and do a little bit more of that in time. And yeah, it's point I'm getting to is I want to talk about one of the Bellator fighters in a few minutes. But yeah, I will start tracking a lot more of the other organisations. I don't want it to just be, it will always be mostly UFC, because let's be honest, they're the cream of the crop. But it's silly to ignore the other organisations too, especially, like, one thing I love about One Championship is the fact that they offer the Muay Thai fights as well, the cage Muay Thai, which is brilliant. It's just a fun change. I like it. I like that they do that. I think it's quite cool to a certain extent. In terms of boxing, I don't know will I ever really cover boxing except for big news. I'm just not enough of a fan, to be honest, and I'm not going to force myself to follow it, so sorry. But yeah, I will be extending to the other MMA events in particular. Just, as I said, it's a slow process. But yeah, the point I was making was I want to talk a little bit about Valerie Loreda. Just give me a moment, please. So the reason being, I know people who follow follow MMA and stuff will be wondering why out of everybody have I picked her. But the reason being is, for starters, a bit like Paige Van Zandt, Valerie Loreda is very easy on the eye. She's absolutely stunning. But it's her attitude. One of the things I noticed, she fought last week. She fought over the weekend. And lost. She lost to Hannah Guy. And via decision. But I mean, she dropped her twice in the first round, I believe. Got caught in a bad armbar and fought through it. And one thing, as I said, what I liked was she put up on her, I believe it was her Instagram or something like that, and it was just her attitude after the loss was brilliant, I thought. Obviously her being so good looking and I believe she does a lot of modelling and things like that, but she always likes to kind of say how, she wants to prove that, women who look like her can also be fighters, which, Paige Van Zandt and people like that have done that, Rachel Ostovich, there's plenty of other fighters. But again, the point I'm saying is it's her attitude. She went on, it was an Instagram live or some form of video anyway, and she was beyond happy. I mean, this is after a loss. And I know some people say it's a bad thing, but it's just the way she handled it. She was saying how you could hear the excitement in her, how she was loving it. She's only 22, but she keeps talking about how she's going to keep improving, and which is a great attitude. I mean, you see some people, that come up, especially at that age, and they have a loss or a couple of losses, and they take it really hard. Now, obviously, it is still early in her career. It's only one loss, so maybe people can still say that could happen, of course. But I just think it's a great thing for especially younger people wanting to get into MMA, and girls in particular, because obviously the girls' female mixed martial arts is obviously a little bit behind the men's, and that's just it's just a fact. It's not because they're women. It's just because it's behind. It took longer to get started and stuff like that. But then you see people like her, and her mental side of the game, from what I gather anyway, is really good. As I said, she was super happy talking about how, I'm having so much fun doing this, and I know I lost, but I'm going to get better. I'm only 22, and it's brilliant. I think it's really good to see, and I think a lot more like that. It's I think people like that, young girls looking up to her, it will invite them to kind of try it out and see what it's like. She can do it, maybe I can do it. She's really pretty. You don't have to look real rough to be a part of it. And she's talented as well, So yeah, I wanted to mention that because I thought, as I said, her attitude after the loss was really good. I know there was other fights on the Bellator card, obviously with Cyborg winning again, which I think most people thought would happen. But I'm not going to get too much into the Bellator side because I didn't really watch enough of it. But I just wanted to mention her, and as I said, in time, Bellator and one, the bigger fights, will be a lot more a part of the podcast, or a much bigger part of the podcast. Sorry, I forgot how to speak English there for a moment. But yeah, just a shout out to Valerie Reid. I thought it was cool the way she handled herself, and again, I think she's a good role model for young people in general looking up to the sport. I mean, she's only 22, which is crazy. And then moving on, we had Paul Felder. Oh no, actually, I got Diego Sanchez again on the podcast this week. Not on the podcast, but talking about him on the podcast. So apparently he has ended his professional relationship with Joshua Fabia. I'm not seeing much stories unless up until I was doing this podcast. I haven't seen much info on it. Only that he has come out and said that he has ended his professional relationship with him, and great, fucking delighted to hear it. I would love to know why. It says he has declined further comment on it, but it says he's gonna gather his thoughts and release a statement next week. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But I know Fabia didn't hear much from him until, I don't know, like yesterday or something. He came out saying that he feels Diego Sanchez has used him for the last 2 years. So pot, kettle. But yeah, there's not much more to it other than that. But I thought it was quite interesting that I wonder why has Sanchez decided to do this. What happened, considering he was dying on his sword for Joshua Fabia a couple of days ago, or the last few weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out with that. So the Sanchez and Fabia thing has not ended just yet. There'll be more. I'm sure he'll be on it next week again. Also, we had Paul Felder deciding to retire. Actually, it just reminds me, oh no, my brain. I hate when this happens. For some reason, every time I get in front of this fucking camera, I can't think of names. There's another fighter that officially retired. Oh my god, it's going to drive me crazy. I'm going to have to edit this part. Sorry, it's just a moment, please. Alan Joban. Fuck, how did my brain do that? Sorry, so yeah, we're going to talk about Paul Felder in a minute, but also Alan Jouban retired from the UFC. A lot of people won't. Well, no, they should know. Like he was an entertaining fighter. In particular, good kicker, which was I used to love watching him when he used to kick. He's really nice kicks. But anyway, the point I'm getting to is I thought the UFC did a really nice thing. He was on the one of the panels. I know they have a few different panels. One of the post-show or pre-show panels. Him, Belal Muhammad, and sorry, I can't think of the presenter's name right now. Again, but I thought it was quite nice, which they surprised him with like a montage or clips of his career, and he was getting quite emotional, which I thought was quite cool because not the biggest name, not even nearly the biggest name in the UFC, but it seems like a really cool character and a nice guy, and he has put on some entertaining fights. But I thought it was nice that they did that, put together. I just think it's nice to do that for guys who have put their blood and sweat into the UFC for quite so many years. And it's also good to see some of these guys, which I'll get on to Paul Felder in a minute. It's good to see some of these guys who are kind of retiring before it's too late, which I do think is quite good to see. But yeah, my point with the Alan Jouban thing, and they did the same for Paul Felder, with they put together some clips. Just I suppose a little sign of respect for the guys who have given their time into the UFC. And it surprised me with Alan Jouban, but it was a nice surprise. I thought it was quite nice to see that. And yeah, it was good, and look best of luck to him. Alan Jouban's a good presenter too, and I know he does, or he used to do a podcast at one point, I think. But yeah, good to see, and best of luck to Jouban, whatever he does next. But I'm sure he's going to be involved in the UFC because, as I said, he's a good looking guy. He speaks well, obviously been around the game, so no harm to keep him there. And then moving on to Paul Felder. So Felder, during the fight card, actually announced his retirement. They gave him the floor for a couple of minutes to just officially announce it, and it was good. Obviously he had announced it when he fought Dan Hooker here, and he announced his retirement after that fight, didn't he? Yeah, and obviously came back, but I thought it was cool. He didn't really speak about it. He spoke a little bit about it when they gave him the floor during the event, but in the post-fight press conference he touched it on a little more, and I liked it because he was quite honest. He was kind of saying like one of his quotes, he refused to be, refuses to be a cautionary tale, kind of. He said like he didn't want to be one of these guys who fights on too long. He kind of hinted at Cowboy Cerrone, and he said, which I liked as well, he said he would rather retire, a couple of fights too early than a couple of fights too late, which again is smart. And he's been honest. He was saying that one of the things he talked about was, I believe his mother had said to him, when he was younger, that he would be angry and like in a bad mood if he didn't get a chance to go and train or hit some pads or something like that. And then he said, like previously to this announcement, that he hadn't set foot near the gym in 3 months, and he was fine with it. And I just think it's a good, honest thing to say, I know he's kind of gone crazy into, I think it's triathlons and stuff like that, running and swimming and all that boring shit. But yeah, and he said like he's been around. I think he has a daughter, been around his daughter, having more time at home, feeling healthy, because obviously with the weight cuts and stuff like that, they're having to really suffer when it comes to enjoying food if they're doing it right. But he said no, he's at like a healthy 170, and he's still in shape, but he's not having to worry about that weight cut eventually. So yeah, listen, best of luck to him. I hope he is. He is definitely retired, and he's not one of these guys going to make another comeback. But I don't think so. It's just cool to hear. I kind of liked, and it's nice to see. He mentioned like looking at Jacare Souza, breaking his arm, and I suppose the Chris Weidman thing. It's nice to see a guy kind of bow out and say, look, that's it, I'm done, I've had enough, And he is, Paul Felder is good on the mic as well. I like to hear him doing the presenting, alongside Bisping and whoever else he does beside sometimes. So yeah, listen, best of luck to him. And I thought, again, it was nice that the UFC paid him that respect. Sometimes you kind of hear guys retire and there isn't a whole lot said. Sometimes you don't even realise they've retired. I like to see the UFC pay these fighters respect. Obviously it's hard, to pay everybody their respect when they retire or when they're leaving or when they're moving on. But it is nice to do it when they can. I think it's good to show that respect, and both Felder and Joban were entertaining fighters. And like again, another thing that Felder had said is he realizes that he's not going to get that belt. He's not going to get to the belt, and it really, when you think about it, he had mentioned this, but when you think about it, there isn't a whole lot of exciting fights for him other than for him to be kind of like a stepping stone or the gatekeeper in the division. I know there's the Makachevs and there's whoever else, maybe Dariush. I don't know. Like there's not fights where you hear them and you're like, oh great, like Felder and Hooker, like they were great fights, but they're all done now. So, and he was talking about the fact that he beat the current champion, Charles Oliveira. So, yeah, there's some things to look at, but I'm happy to see him retire. I think he probably is doing it at the right time, and I hope to see more fighters do that. Like your Khabib as well. Obviously we would love to see him come back, but at the same time, this is better than seeing him doing it one fight too late. Like a GSP as well, who retired probably when he had a couple of more fights, and I think GSP almost hit. He probably hit that perfect time. Maybe he had another fight or two in him, but the maybe is the problem. Then what happens is, they take that one fight and they get knocked out, or they get beaten bad, and then it's got that hunger. No, I can't go out like that. Come back for another one, and before you know it, these new fans are getting to watch an absolute legend get the shit beat out of them, which does happen. It's happening as we speak. So yeah, I like to see this. I like the Khabib's retired too. Obviously, if that division was pretty shitty, maybe it wouldn't be so easy. But yeah, look, retire early if you can. It's good to see it. I do enough giving out about guys not retiring past their sell by date. So it is good to see this. So the best of luck to Felder, best of luck to Alan Joban. Talking about Paul Felder, actually, this is old news, but I wanted to bring it up anyway. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, but it resurfaced, after Paul Felder had announced his retirement. The Twitter exchange, very small, very quick exchange between John Fury and Paul Felder. It's gone back, I'm not too sure. 2020? Yeah. This was only last year. But yeah, John Fury being Tyson Fury's father. Yeah, it was... I don't know where it came out of, but it's hilarious. If you're going to be a troll, in fact, don't be a troll. But if you're going to be a troll like John Fury. This is hilarious, but I'm sure people have seen it. But anyway, if you haven't, basically it comes up, John Fury tweeting to Paul Felder saying, "Stay retired, Paul. You're a better commentator than a fighter." Of course, Paul Felder, not being happy, replied with, "Does it make you feel good saying that? Now, would you say that to my face, man to man?" And John Fury writes back, "Nope, you kicked my ass. That's why I said it on Twitter." With Paul Felder responding, "Fair enough." I mean, it's hilarious. Like, that's, if you're going to be a troll, that's how you do it. Don't be one of these assholes. But I thought it was hilarious. Typical of you kind of see where Tyson Fury gets it, But yeah, it's hilarious. That was one of the funniest things, and just brought back a laugh when I saw it again yesterday. But yeah, really good. Funny shit. God, speaking of, it's hard not to mention Tyson Fury without talking about what's happening with the boxing. I'm sure myself and Ian will talk about it on the Paddy and the Pommy podcast next week or whenever. But yeah, fuck, this is what irritates me about boxing. I want to touch on it very quickly, but I know for people that don't know, me and Ian talked about it a little bit already in the last podcast. But yeah, apparently a date has been announced now between Wilder and Fury, which just come out of fucking nowhere. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure boxing fans will debate this or be for or against what I'm saying, but I think this is a big problem with boxing. One thing that's great about boxing is that fighters get paid so well. A lot of fighters get paid so well, but then you've got this shit where getting a fight done is just fucking impossible. Like, all of a sudden Wilder decides to get involved in the mix, and he's completely put a spanner in the works for Fury and Joshua. So now you're going to have Fury versus Wilder, and I think Joshua's fighting Povetkin, I think. Apologies if I have that wrong. But you know, there's a chance that I know both guys are, I'm sure, pretty heavy favourites in their fights. There's a chance for something to go wrong there, and then it shits on the Fury and Joshua fight, which I don't understand. I know, I think Wilder had asked for, I know sometimes they can pay a guy to step aside, and I think Wilder had asked for like 20 million that they weren't willing to give him, which I'm surprised, because boxing is usually good at throwing money around, but maybe that's the little piece I have of it anyway. But fuck, Wilder's not doing himself favours with fans though, is he? You know, ever since he lost that fight, he really isn't. I like Wilder, you know, I'm a fan of his story and all that, but some of the horrendous excuses he came out with after his loss, and then going on for it, and then he goes completely quiet, and then comes out and fucking puts a spanner in the works for probably, if not the biggest, one of the biggest boxing fights ever. Quite crazy. But God, people would hate him. Imagine if, like, I don't see him beating Fury, but just imagine if he did, or imagine if Joshua loses. People are going to hate Wilder, and I really don't think he's too popular with fans now as it is. So, not doing yourself any favours there. But yeah, moving on from that boxing shit. Nah, just kidding. But at least I'm not talking about the Paul brothers. Oh no, fuck them. Fuck Jake Paul. It's hilarious to see all the UFC events now, whether he's there or not. There's a round of fuck Jake Paul. Fuck Jake Paul. It's insane how much clout he's getting, you know, or recognition, I suppose. I really am going to go on talking about them, but it is just insane the amount of. They're good, I would give them that. They're good at getting themselves into the limelight in some way. Moving on. So, to the fight card. I've been going a while already, I haven't even talked about the fights. So, not the biggest card in the world. My fucking sleep pattern has been all over the place lately because I'm still out of work, which I return to tomorrow, which is going to be hell. I don't even remember how to work. But yeah, you know, for anyone that doesn't know, I've been out with a shoulder issue. It's been a fucking nightmare. But the point I'm making is my sleep pattern has been all over the place, and for this fight card, struggling to stay awake for some of the fights. I did, however, rewatch some of them. Not the most amazing card all around, so I'm going to skip through it a little bit. Not really going to talk about the prelims, as usual. So, but I will mention this guy. He lost his fight, like, but this Chris Barnett guy, who I believe he was a last minute replacement for this fight or something. I had only just before the fight started paying attention to him, to be honest. He fought in the XFL, or it's one of those smaller shows. Fuck, a funny character. Such a funny character. Anyone, you know, go and check him out. Chris Barnett, he fought Ben Rothwell at heavyweight in his first fight, lost via submission. But a very, very funny character. Tough fucking fight though, for your first fight to fight Ben Rothwell, who's, you know, super experienced. But I hope the UFC have offered him a bit of a contract, because he's a funny character. You see him dancing out to the cage in a lot of his previous fights, and some of his celebrations are hilarious, and he moves for a big guy. You know, he likes to throw spinning kicks and stuff like that. So yeah, fun guy. Hopefully he gets a couple of more fights. I'd like to see him get a couple of fucking easy fights, you know. The one thing about the UFC is you do not really get any tune-ups, which is great, of course, but at the same time it can be a hindrance to some of these fun fighters that you like to see stick around a bit. So running down for this card, we had Jack Hermanson beating Edmund Shabazian. I think Shabazian, they're not doing him any favours either. I mean, he's obviously had a loss in his last fight against Derek Brunson. I wonder if wrestlers are his Achilles heel or something, but yeah, they're just not doing him any favours. I mean, if he loses to Brunson, then you kind of like to see him get not a tune-up fight, but, you know, a favourable matchup. Jack Hermanson is not a favourable matchup for anybody. He's a fucking beast. And it showed in this fight he was, you know, somewhat dominant, like, but Shabazian is not by any means done. He's still only young, but you just wonder if these losses are going to affect him in any way, you know. But Hermansson's a fucking beast, absolute beast. He's just a tough guy. I'd imagine like anybody, he's a tough guy to beat. He's pretty well rounded, you know. Even his walk, he's got like this Terminator walk to him. He's a good win for him. Kind of keeps him in that mix a little bit. Then we had Ricardo Ramos beating Bill Algeo, Felicia Spencer losing to Norma Dumont. Spencer, who got her ass whooped by Amanda Nunes in her last fight, I believe. She got her ass whooped by Amanda Nunes, but I think it was in her last fight. So Norma Dumont probably making somewhat of not a name, like, but she possibly in line to fight Nunes at featherweight. Not a lot of options at featherweight, unfortunately. Jared Vandera beat Justin Taffa. Big fan of Justin Taffa. His record is a little sketchy, unfortunately. I hope the UFC are willing to have patience with him, because he's always in entertaining fights as well. And then you Carla Esparza. Jeez, my voice is going. Sorry. Carla Esparza beating Yan Xiaonan by TKO. Very dominant performance from Esparza. Pretty much, she didn't announce herself as the next title challenger, but she made her presence known. Very dominant. And Yan Xiaonan is no cakewalk by any means. But Esparza with her wrestling and just completely dominated her. It was one of these cases where like she cut her with a nice elbow, and then she just got her in the crucifix and just kept boom, boom, boom. I don't know if Xiaonan was really in major trouble. Like, she was getting beat up, in other words, but it was just that there was nowhere she could go. The ref, it was one of those situations where the ref has no choice, because you're just laying there, you can't move, and the Esparza just bang, 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 beating the drum. And good win for Esparza. And you know, like, she beat Namajunas, I believe, if I'm not wrong. See how the brain works. She beat her after the Ultimate Fighter to become the first strawweight champion, I think. I believe so. She was the first. They fought for the first strawweight belt. And we're back. If it looks like we have rapidly gone from daylight into night mid talking about the Carla Esparza fight, that's because we have. My camera decided to die while I was talking during that first attempt at this podcast. It happens sometimes when I don't have somebody on the camera while I'm here. And I could just lie and or not say anything and let it work its way out, but I'm sure you're going to notice that I don't know how much different it looks when it switches over, but it went from daylight to night, unfortunately. Just the camera died, so don't judge me. These things happen. Podcasting is not as easy as it looks, especially when you're doing it by yourself. Unfortunately, my partner is working at the moment, so that's life. Get over it. So we were talking about the Carla Esparza fight. Good performance from her. As I was just saying, she has beaten Rose Namajunas, so that might be her way of, I don't know, vouching for herself for that fight. I don't know. But she may get a shot based off that. Good performance all round, so she has done herself a favour here, of course. Then we had, of course, the main event, which is Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. This is a great fight. What we're talking about, the fight was won realistically off Rob Font's jab. I thought Cody Garbrandt looked pretty well, pretty good. He kind of answered any of those questions that people were asking about his chin, because he took some good shots in this fight. Rob Font, not really a power puncher, but massive volume puncher. He has that kind of Diaz brother kind of way of just chopping away at your body over 5 rounds, at your face mostly. In terms of Cody Garbrandt, he looked good. He came on with a good flurry in the 5th round. For a moment or two, kind of done a little bit of wrestling, was just surprising at the start of the fight. But he seemed to kind of, after the 2nd round, either tire a little bit, or I thought maybe something was injured or something. Because anytime he would press forward, and throw combinations, he was putting Rob Font in trouble. But it's just strange he didn't do it that often. Don't know why. He seemed to back up a lot, kind of give Rob Font the space to use his reach and his jab. But again, that's down to Rob Font as well. It's not just Cody Garbrandt allowing him to do it. But like a good fight all round. I don't think either guy's, of course, Rob Font's stock isn't going to go down, but I don't think Cody Garbrandt's stock has gone down either. It's a good fight for him, good performance. Rob Font kind of announcing his, if you get a title shot, but kind of letting people know, a bit like Carl Esparza, kind of letting people know he's there or thereabout. The only thing is the bantamweight is a little more of a stacked division. I see Sugar Sean O'Malley looking for the Cody Garbrandt fight. That might be fun. I still think Garbrandt might be a bit too much for Sean O'Malley though. I mean, you see the way like he was doing it in this fight too. He was throwing some heavy leg kicks, and just his power and speed, of course. Sean O'Malley's a great striker, great technique in his striking. But I just wonder, I don't know, Sean O'Malley might want to take his time, I think, going for that fight. Just my opinion. But nevertheless, it'd be an intriguing fight to see. But yeah, good performance from Rob Font. You gotta love the jab. I mean, it's insane how important a jab is in a fight. And you see them particular guys like him, oh my god, Kamaru Usman is a great example. Most of those guys that come out of the Trevor Whitman camp have a great jab. But yeah, wow, it's a good performance from him, and yeah, it would be interesting to see who he fights next. Bantamweight is a fun division as well, just like lightweight. But yeah, we just got through that card with a little bit of a hiccup in between. We'll have a quick look at next week's card. It's another fight night, so not a huge card, but at the same time it's fun. There's some fun fights on it. So I'll quickly run through the prelims here. Yikes. So this first fight, I'm going to struggle with this name. Women's flyweight, Manon Vake. Manon Fiorot. Manon, that's what you say to a central midfielder in football. Manon, I think it's Manon Fiorot. Fuck, it's a hard name. I've never heard of that lady before. Versus Marina Moros, which I have heard of. Tough name. Sorry if I got that name wrong, but yeah, Manon Fiorot versus Marina Moros. In women's flyweight, then you have in men's welterweight, obviously, Alan Patrick versus Mason Jones. Then welterweight, Francisco Trinaldo, he's still at it, versus Muslim Salikov. Then heavyweight, you got Tanner Boser versus Ilir Latifi. Fucking Ilir Latifi still at heavyweight. Then you got fun fighter actually in featherweight, Makwan Americani. Very fun fighter. I think he's still, at least he was, he's fighting out of SBG in Dublin under John Kavanagh. And then you have, Americani versus Nate Landwehr. But yeah, Americani is always kind of a fun fighter to watch. And that's the prelims. Then we move on to the main card. We have, opening up the main card, Tom Breeze versus Antonio Arroyo. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Miguel Besa. Ponzinibbio is a fun fighter. Suffered a big loss in his last fight after, I think he spent like 3 years out, 4 years if I'm not wrong. So it might be a good opportunity for him to bounce back depending on how he is after that last loss. Then we have at middleweight Roman Dolidze versus Laureano Staropoli. Then at heavyweight we have the big ticket, Walt Harris versus Marcin Tybura. I like that fight. I'd like to see Walt Harris get a win after what's obviously been a tough few months or a year or so for him. Then at heavyweight we have obviously the main event, Jairzinho Rosenstruik versus Augusto Sakai. I like that fight too. I see Rosenstruik winning via decapitation. But yeah, fun fight. It's not a bad card all round. Couple of big boys on that fight, which is, they're always tense and quite fun. Obviously there's the big card then the week after, but I won't talk about that now. Talk about it again. But yeah, that's pretty much the fight recap and the fight preview, I suppose. That's it for this week. Apologies about the little hiccup in between. It's just sometimes it happens when I can't keep an eye on the battery from this side. stop complaining. But no, I'm just joking, sort of. But yeah, that's it, guys. Please tune in next week. As I always say, keep liking, subscribing, and also, which I've said a ton of times, I can't even remember whether I've said this already or not, so apologies if I have. But anyone out there who has any ideas, would like to get involved, would like to come on the podcast, if you have, as I say, if you have a good idea, not just any random idea, but I'm all ears. I'm open for any suggestions or anything like that. Hit me up on the Instagram, on the YouTube, on the Facebook, wherever. Yeah, hit us up. Any ideas or suggestions you may have. We really do have I have a book full of notes of project ideas and stuff we're going to do. Just our timeline at the moment is just some things we're working on that is taking more of our attention. But we do have some pretty cool projects, ones I'm really looking forward to trying. Where, as I said earlier in the podcast, or at least I think I might have said it in my mind, I don't know, about the, expanding beyond the UFC to start looking at more one championship stuff, more Bellator stuff, not just focusing solely on the UFC. It will still mostly be UFC, but some of the other stuff as well. Eventually talking a bit about football. Listen, plenty of other things happening. Please keep supporting us, we really appreciate it. Yeah, just the more support we get, the more fun things we can do, and there is fun things coming along. But I do appreciate the support so far. Genuinely, it's like I said, it's been fun. I'm not going anywhere. I enjoy this, so I'm going to always try and make time for it. But soon, hopefully, I will have more time for it, and things will be a lot more fun, and a lot more routine, with that lovely little dash of madness. But yeah, also, guys, like I said earlier in the podcast, please show your support to the Vake family and City Kickboxing here in Auckland. Wherever you may be, check it out online. You can support by buying one of the Vake family t-shirts, support by donating, whatever you can do. Listen, I understand, as much as myself, we don't have a lot of money to spare. If you have it, by all means support. If not, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad or pressure you. I'm just putting it out there. Show your support in any way you can. Means sharing their posts or whatever. Just whatever you can do for the family that's going through a very tough time, and the club that's going through a very tough time. But yeah, on that note, that's it, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Go Grab That Day podcast. Stay happy, stay clean, and don't go eating any bats. Love you guys. Take care.